Today we're doing our low vision home assessment on Jake Manning. He has a diagnosis of glaucoma. He owns a one-story house and he does have a roommate, but she does not act as a caregiver. He is independent in all of his ADLs. He currently uses glasses and he has not fallen yet, but he has had near fall experiences. And today we're really just going to be looking at his outdoor area, his yard, his main entrance to his house, and his carport.
Hi, Mr. Manning. My name is Rahn. I'm going to be your occupational therapy student today. How are you doing today?
I'm very
good. Okay, so I understand you're having some concerns about your carport area and your yard and your entrance. What's going on?
When I come home at night, it's dark, and I just have problems seeing, and I almost fell stepping up into the house.
Do you drive in the daytime too? Do you have troubles in the daytime? Okay.
No, starting to sometimes, but mostly at night.
And you're just scared you're going to fall?
Yeah.
Okay. How frequently do you use this area?
Every day.
Every day? Okay, well we definitely, we're going to take a look at it, me and my other occupational therapy student, Sam, over there.
Hey.
And we're going to take a look at it, and based off what we see, we're going to make some recommendations and suggestions. That way you can make this a little more accessible for you and a little safer.
Okay.
Sound good?
Sounds perfect.
Great. Okay, so first we're going to take a look at Mr. Manning's carport. This is where he obviously parks his car every day. There's no entrance to the house. He has to park here and then walk into his house from the back. And there's no automatic doors or door repairs. There are no garage doors. He says already that he uses it daily, and he uses it during the day, and he's starting to get where he doesn't want to use it at night. So first off, we're going to take a look at lighting. There are some motion-activated lights up here, floodlights, but those are only going to kick on at nighttime. Once you come into the carport, there are a couple of lights up top. And we're going to take a look at the quality of the light and the lumens and the bulb type. So if you want to take a look at those, Sam. The only bad thing is, Mr. Manning said that he does have to turn these lights on from inside his unit. So he does have to open this doorway, come all the way over here to turn his lights on. And as you can see, the quality is not great. The position isn't very good for him either, because when he parks his car, he gets out on the other side that the lights are on. So there's no direct light overhead of him when he's getting out of his vehicle. And there, as you can see, there is kind of some shadows that are cast and some glare from the other vehicles, but from when the light comes in at nighttime.
Next we're going to look at contrast. So we're going to look at the contrast between the wall and the floor and the doors for his storage area. So the contrast isn't very good. His doors are a light gray with a gold kind of brassy door handle and then a white storage area. So this is kind of hard to see at night. And this is how you would turn the lights on. So it would be difficult to get the lights on without the contrast. And then the floor is just gray. There's not a lot of contrast here except when the shadows are shown. There's a little bit right here, but that's pretty much it. There's no shelving out here, so that's it. Yeah. Next we're going to talk about surface. So the surface of his carport, the floor is just concrete. It's all smooth and there's no incline. There's a little bit of contrast with it between the car. So this would be good for during the daytime because his vehicle is black. However, at night without the lights on, there's not a whole lot of help here. He also has a storage unit. These two doors open and he has storage here. There is access to these. This is where he would turn his light on for his carport. There's a few shelves in here, but he doesn't use them often because he doesn't like being out here at night. There are some clutter and obstacles. There's these boxes over here, and then he keeps his trash can on this side of the carport. So these could be hazardous at night, and it also requires him to walk all the way around his vehicle rather than being able to come around the front side of it.
So after assessing Mr. Manning's garage and carport area, we did notice some things that could use some improvement, so we did make some recommendations to him. In terms of lighting, we suggested probably getting some better bulbs that will have a brighter, bigger light that they'll shed. Also, if there's any way possible for him to move his light switch from inside of the storage area to the outside of it so that he can easily access it without having to open the door and go into the unit and turn it on. We also suggested maybe looking into installing some more motion sensored lights. He does have some on the outside of the carport, but there's none that are really in the vicinity of where he gets out of his vehicle. So something like that might be good at night when he does get out. It'll kick on once it senses motion. In terms of contrast, we suggested maybe he paint the storage area door, or any really kind of adding any paint that will add any contrast, because there wasn't any. They're all white pretty much, or a light gray, so there's not a whole lot of difference between the color of the wall, the color of the door, and the color of the concrete. We did notice that there was a little bit of clutter and disorganization around his carport area. In front of his car, there were a lot of boxes and just a lot like kind of trash. It actually prevents him from going around the front of his car to get to the storage area to turn the light on. He actually has to walk all the way around the back of his vehicle and go up the middle to get to his storage area. So that creates a bigger path for him to walk through. And there was also some stuff leaning up against the poles of his carport that he would have to walk past, so that's another area where he could fall. So just cleaning up these general areas will give him a clearer path. It might take away some of the risk that he has for falling if he can't see anything. And then just overall, we suggest just trying to add as much light as possible, so if he does happen to need to come home at nighttime, he's not worried that he's going to fall, and he'll be able to see everything around him, and then just cleaning up the area. So Mr. Manning, this is your yard, a lovely yard. Are you able to get out here on your own, or do you have to have some help?
I used to come out here more, but now I don't as much. I have to step off the deck here to come out into the yard.
And you're worried about falling?
Yeah.
Okay, but right now you can still
Right.
use it a little bit. Okay, how often do you like to come out into your yard?
Oh, well, I let my dog out here, so then I'll come out here when I get home.
Okay, and you're worried about when you come out of your
Right.
house falling. Okay, awesome. Well, we'll take a look at your yard too. Thank you.
No problem.
So next we're going to take a look at Mr. Manning's backyard. As he said, he does access it daily because he lets his dog out, so he's going to be using it day and night time. Right now he can access it independently, but he is concerned that might not be possible for much longer due to him not being able to see as well, and he is worried about falling. So first we're going to take a look at lighting. There's no direct lighting fixtures that provide light to this area except for sunlight. There is some residual light left over from the floodlights and from his back porch, but like I said, that's not going to offer a lot of light at nighttime since there's nothing that directly provides to this area. There are some shadows present. This carport does block a lot of the sunlight that is coming in the back of the backyard is a lot darker than it is up here. Any glare issues might be coming from the cars if the light hits them, but nothing else is really going to provide any glare. There's no fixtures out here that would give glare. So the surface of his backyard, he does have a little bit of pavers that kind of lead into the area, and they're smooth, they're concrete. His grass, he does have grass in the backyard, but the terrain is a little uneven, and there are some small holes, and even a bigger hole that his dog dug, which is a hazard. That's why the cardboard box is over it. But other than that, it doesn't look like there's any other major holes, but the terrain is a little uneven. And then the back of the yard is like mulch and pine straw, so that's like on a little bit of an incline compared to the rest of the yard and a little more uneven. And like I said, there is some shadows that are cast more on the back. In terms of area, there is the presence of a small deck. It's about a foot off of the ground, which could be an issue if he doesn't see it or if he falls from it, takes a misstep. There's no little garden area except for over here, and these little stones could be an issue if he doesn't see them. In terms of hazards, there are definitely several out here that are concerning. As I mentioned, the holes from the dog, as well as the hose. That's easily something you can trip on. no railing from the deck, so if he does misstep or missees, he can fall off from this, as well as these little concrete blocks that can get in the way. Other than that, there's not any other rocks or in-ground speakers or anything that would cause an issue. It would really just be providing lighting to this area and getting rid of some of these holes.
After looking at Mr. Manning's yard, we've made some recommendations that will make it safer for him. Just by continuing to use his yard during the daytime when there is natural light. Adding more motion sensor lights will help, and making sure to add these to the side of the house and to the side of the carport so the light will actually shine onto the yard. Filling in the holes that his dog has dug will help, and if he's not able to do this, then having a landscaper will help. Painting the deck a contrasting color and having the boards that are coming back up nailed down. This can help with potential tripping. Putting the water hose in a container that can roll it up and out will keep it from bunching up on the side of the deck, which could also cause them to trip. And having lights that shine on the garden area so that the rocks are not such a hazard. He could also have railing by the deck that could help with safety when stepping down, and just having more light around the deck area and into the yard.
So, Mr. Manning, you have some concerns about your back porch here. What are your concerns?
Well, when I come out, I have a step down, and I have another step down immediately after.
Okay, and you've almost fallen a couple
A
times?
few times.
Okay, well, we'll take a look at that, and then we can make some suggestions for some things that you can do better. But you do use this every day, right?
Every day.
And at night?
And at night.
Is your main entrance?
It is.
All right, cool.
So now we're going to talk about Mr. Manning's back porch, but this is his main entrance because he does access it from his carport. He walks up these stones and then comes up to the porch. There is a step up, and there's not a lot of good contrast here. The concrete stones are almost the same color as the porch, and then he does have this deck, which is kind of a dried out wood, so everything's sort of the same color. So at nighttime, this would be very difficult to see. It does have lighting up here. This is it. We're going to take a look at the bulb and the lumens. If you can zoom in on that. The switch for it is inside, so he has to open the door and flick the switch from the inside. So this could be difficult if he chooses not to leave the light on. So when he comes in at night, he'd have to open the door and then turn the light on, so it kind of defeats the purpose of actually having the light. There's no floodlights out here or anything that's motion censored, so nothing just comes on automatically. There is a shadow coming from this side of the house, just on the porch, but not really on the deck. And there's no glares present. But other than the step up, the porch itself is all one level. There's no incline to it. However, there is a step up after he opens the door to get inside. The contrast here on his entrance, the outside is like a gray concrete, and then the inside is wooden and it's brown. So there is a contrast for his entrance. That's it.
Okay, so as Sam mentioned, there were a couple of steps involved, and especially with this deck, this like edge that comes out here could be an issue as well, because like she mentioned, there is no really great contrast between these two colors because they're both kind of in the gray tan family, so he could easily run into this. And she said there's no incline. There is a couple steps, so there's no railing, which wouldn't really be an issue now, but when this does become a little harder for him to get into, he might want to think about some railing to get up these steps. He does have this mat here, which does provide a little bit of contrast before he gets to the steps, so if he sees it, he knows that this mat is here, he'll know that his step comes next. Next, we're going to look at his door. So there is no true contrast, it's white on white. So this would be a little harder for him to see at night. His handle is even painted white with a little chipping. So he might have to fumble around for this, especially if it's dark, since his light won't be on at night until he turns it on. When you open it, there is a threshold before you get into the hardwood. So there's a little bit of a raised area. It's silver contrasting with the brown. This could be an issue where he could trip on this if he's not aware of it. There is also on his screen door, there's no lock, but on his other door, he does have a little bit of a contrast between the silver handle and the white door, and he has a lock, but he does need the lock and unlock. So he would need to open both doors before getting inside to turn his light on. In terms of obstacles and hazards, there are definitely some hazards and obstacles around here. For one, this electrical cord that serves to power his grill, that is a very big fall hazard right there. It is orange, but at night he probably won't see that the bright color is showing off of the gray. There also is a little bit of clutter around here. His pellets for his grill and his trash can are here, and then he does have another mat and a cooler there, so those are easily things that he can trip and fall over outside of just the steps that he has to worry about.
The last part of Mr. Manning's house that we assessed was his entrance. It's actually his back entrance, but it's the entrance he uses the most. There were a lot of areas here that we made recommendations for, a lot of things that could be made better for him, safer and easier. The first thing that we noticed was the lighting in this area. Similar to how the carport was, this also had a light switch that was not accessible. His light switch is actually on the inside of his house, so when he gets to his back door, he has to open not only his screen door, but his regular door, and then turn the light switch on for his outside area, which kind of defeats the purpose because by that time he's just going to go into the house. So we suggested maybe adding some motion sensor lights here as well that will kick on once they sense the movement. And then changing the bulb for the light that he does have out there because it did cast poor lighting. Maybe something that will cast a brighter and bigger light will be a little better for him at nighttime. We also suggested that he might want to think about putting like a small flashlight on his keychain so he can use it to get his key in the lock for his doors and get in a little easier. The next thing that we looked at was the surface of his entrance. He did have the same kind of like gray concrete. There was also a deck area that kind of goes in between his backyard and his porch area, and then there was some small pavers that led up to the back porch, and these were all pretty much the same color of gray. There wasn't a whole lot of contrast, so he might want to think about painting the concrete here. I know that's a really simple fix that a lot of people are doing now, or even using like a reflective tape on some of the steps back there just so they would kind of provide a contrast and something that he could discern the concrete, the pavers, and the deck from. Also, for his little walkway that kind of goes up to his entrance, we suggested maybe some of those like little backyard lamps that are solar powered. They're like 99 cents at the store, and he can kind of line his way with that. So if he does come home at night, it does cast a little more light, and if anything, it'll outline the area that he needs to walk around. He did have 2 steps. Once he goes from the pavers to the porch, there is a step, and then from the step on from the porch into his house. There was no railing around there, but he might want to think about maybe adding a small rail or a grab bar to those areas so he can use it as an extra base of support. He can kind of grab onto that in case he is a little concerned about tripping or falling. For his doorway, his door was white, the same color as his final sidings on his house, so there was really no contrast for that. And even the doorknob on the screen door was white. It was chipping a little bit. So maybe painting the knob or just painting the screen door or something so it provides a little bit of contrast and it's easier for him to see where the door starts and where the wall begins. We did also notice, like the carport, there was some clutter around there too. He had another extra mat, a cooler, a trash can, and his like shavings for his grill that he keeps out there. These are things that don't necessarily need to be around his doorway, so he can move them to other areas of his back porch or his deck, just so they're out of his way when he's trying to get into his house. And these are things he really doesn't need to access at nighttime as well, so he can definitely keep them away, so when he is coming in at night, there's nothing in his way from getting into his house. Another thing we noticed that was a little concerning was he did have a big extension cord that ran right across his path where he needs to go into his house. This is something that he can definitely trip on. If there's no way for him to reroute it, maybe across his door frame, we definitely suggest taping it down so it's smooth. It's not going to come up. He can't catch himself on it. And even using like a bright, colorful duct tape so he's aware that it's there, and he can just step right over it.
It's a miracle. He can walk around and climb up the steps. He don't need no therapy.
Yield.
Mr. Manning.
Mr. Man is making us food for payment for doing this assessment today.
So, Mr. Manning, stop.
Do it again.